Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I'm the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, the master of the deceptive arts, and I return to you once again to be the unrepentant voice of the vasectomites. And today I wanted us to talk about surrendering, just letting go and accepting defeat. I want you to consider conceding all your notions of success, wealth, grandeur, all these delusions that you have about yourself, and simply accept reality. Now, I'm not suggesting that you, or even recommending that you yield authority, personal authority, to anyone, let alone myself, the master of the deceptive arts, whom you very well know you cannot trust me. I'm telling you, you cannot trust me. I'm also not recommending that you yield to the whims and follies of another flawed mortal. To do this is a tragic mistake, one that many have fallen into, trusting that another person has their best interest at heart. How mistaken you truly are. Here at the Vasectomy Life, formerly known as the Bachelor Life, I'm going through a rebranding, we advocate for and motivate for the following: self-control, self-confidence, self-preservation, and self-determination, all accomplished through the power of self-motivation. I would never suggest, under any circumstances, that a vasectomite, present, considering, or even future vasectomite, yield to the whims of a breeder, let alone a knee-bending breeder at that. No. What I'm suggesting to you is that you yield to a much higher power than even these knee benders and counterparts, and to a more powerful entity, perhaps the ultimate entity that might be known to mankind. I want you to yield to a presence that we all feel every day. We have all experienced in one measure or another, and we all know it very, very well. I'm talking about yielding your delusions to reality. Just let go of all of this nonsense that you know of yourself. Surrendering. The term means to stop resisting to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. It means to give up, to hand over either a person, a right, or a possession. Synonyms include capitulate, yield, submit, defer, acquiesce, right? To acquiesce, to cave in, right? And you might be asking yourself, but ancient one, how is reality my enemy? Some some of you might have even thought that I was talking about yielding to something like money. You might have anticipated that I would have suggested that you might yield to the law, or even these counterparts, or even the philosophy of benderism. Get your money, get your muscles, get your mental health, and then get yourself a woman, and then end up in child support for 18 years, right? Paying alimony for the rest of your life, for the rest of your life. That's what they don't tell you about alimony, by the way, right? They tell you child support for 18 years. Yeah, alimony is for life. You hear me? Alimony is for life. But this isn't what I'm talking about, right? I might still throw it in, but it's not the focus. You think that reality is not your enemy because you consider yourself a logical person. But I'm here to prove that reality is, in fact, your enemy. And it is only for one reason and one reason only. And it's because you are delusional. You see yourself as something other than and something more than what you really are. You have delusions of grandeur. You think things will get worse when you leave, and they are better when you are there. You think that when you leave a counterpart, and as a counterpart, you think that when you leave these knee benders, that their life collapses, and it doesn't. It either pretty much stays the same, uh, in terms of being equalized. So you're going to pay alimony, you're going to pay child support, and they'll have to get a job. But they'll make sure that you equalize them, right? Or it will improve, right? Things always get better. People settle in. It'll dip for a little while, but otherwise it'll come back for some. Right. For most who don't get it right, there's always someone to pay alimony. And this is what they don't tell you. The ones who don't pay alimony, oh, they are so relieved. They are so relieved because for a lot of them, the child support ends and then alimony continues. So child support ends and alimony goes up, right? But you think that things are going to get worse when you leave, when in fact they're not. They're not. They're just going to take money from you and give it to them. And if you don't believe me, just go look up what alimony is. You believe that you can do more than what another man or other men are capable of, or better yet, other women. Right? You think that you can spend more money on a counterpart than the other man did, just because that man got to his limit. He got to a point where he said, you know what, I don't want to spend any more money on these counterparts. Right? And she started complaining that her man isn't spending money on her. When he bought her a house, when he bought her a car, when he took her on vacations, when he paid for her medical, when he paid for her entertainment, her internet, her phone, her laptop, gifts, birthdays, anniversaries, honeymoons, other people's birthdays, all kinds of things. And then at the end, he realizes that, you know what, he's paying for a dud. And when he stops paying for a dud, what she then does is complain that, oh, he's not spending money on me, he's broke. And then you jump in with your wallet and your credit card. And then there you go, you start spending. And eventually you also realize, hey, wait a minute, I didn't, you know, I got a fake. The thing that I'm getting, and I thought I was getting a helpmate, but I'm just getting a liability. That's what they tell you. You're getting a helpmate who's going to double your salary and make you a millionaire. You're getting a liability who's going to run through your finances, your resources, and your patience in record time. Right? You believe that you can give the best love. You know, there's these men that believe that they can love a counterpart out of mental health. You think you can love a counterpart out of trauma. Trauma, by the way, that she put herself in. And I know you might be thinking, oh, it's not fair to blame the victim. I mean, don't you have parents? And I know you're thinking, what do the parents have to do with this? Well, the point is this: whatever trauma happened to you, for the most part, probably happened outside of your parents' house. You weren't safely tucked into your father's house with your mother and father living there, holding the line, being strict, being disciplined. No, you weren't. You broke the rules and got terrible outcomes. I'm not saying that those outcomes are justified. I'm just saying there's a pattern of behavior here. There's a pattern of behavior here, right? It's like substance abuse addicts, and you come out and say, oh well, I have a problem, substance abuse, I need help, and so on and so on. And then the question was, well, how did you first encounter the substance? Oh well, one day when I was a kid, I went to a party. Stop right there. So you're telling me that, in your parents' home, there was no substances? No, no, no. My parents didn't drink, they didn't smoke. They were very strict, they were very religious, they uphold moral laws and such things. And I went outside of that. I did the exact thing they told me not to do. They told me not to go party. They told me not to socialize with unscrupulous people, unscrupulous men, and unscrupulous women. They told me not to indulge in substances. They told me not to drink, not to smoke, not to be an addict. And I did all those things. And now I'm a victim. It's like, no, 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 no. And you look at some of these people, and their families are still okay. It's not like the families are ruined or anything. No, no, no. The family is perfectly fine. The problem is that one person. That one person who decided to leave this perfectly fine situation to go somewhere and get negative results. And you believe that you can love this person. You believe that you can love this person more than their father, more than their mother, more than their entire family. And you are a complete stranger. Just think about that. Most people marry someone that they don't even really know. In the past, you used to marry people who was in your social circle, somebody you knew them, vouched for them, blah, blah, blah. Right? It was all through human interaction. But now it's all in various different ways. And most people that you're meeting are complete strangers. And you believe that you can love them more than anybody else that has tried to love them throughout their life. So much so that you can fix their trauma, their baggage, their addiction, their problems. That's insane. That is absolute insanity. It's a delusion. Right? You ask me, how are you an enemy of reality? The fact that you think that the love that you feel inside of your heart, inside of your brain, the chemical reaction that's functioning inside of your brain, clouding your delusion, you believe that that same reaction is happening with that person, clouding their delusion. You think the love that you feel for them will be translated into the love that they feel for you, which is absurd, which is absolutely absurd, right? You think that you can be the most compassionate, the most understanding, the most forgiving. And top of all that, you think that you can provide the best intimacy. Every man does. Really, every man does. And I did too for a while. And really, I'm going to tell you something. After getting my vasectomy, I stopped telling myself this delusion. It just became very clear to me that this wasn't the case. Now, this is not to imply that I did not give my best effort. Really, I did. Even the failed efforts were, they came from the right place, Even when, and I'm not gonna lie, there were moments where I failed to rise to the occasion. Just my rocket wouldn't launch. I tried to fry my eggs and the stove just wouldn't heat up. There was just no gas. You know what I'm trying to say. And even the failed ones, they all mean something to me, sort of, right? But there was a moment in life where I thought, you know what, if I gave my best effort every single time, it would translate to great intimacy, not just for me, but for her. Yeah, no, that just didn't work out that way. Yeah, I mean, you just have to do it for yourself, man. You just have to do it because you like it and you're enjoying it. And on the one hand, I mean, of course, you still want to give in a good performance, and do what you can. But if you don't know which buttons to press, there's no point in trying to turn on that stove, because you could be just turning and turning and turning and turning and turning and turning and turning with no flame. You're trying to spark a flame and get things boiling. But if you don't know that you gotta turn and twist and pull and then ignite, you'll just be turning that button until it pretty much goes raw or breaks. Those are your only options. So I would suggest, if you are gonna play the game, at least understand the theory behind it and try and hit those critical buttons. Otherwise, you're just gonna miss every time, right? You ever seen somebody shoot and shoot and shoot and not hit the mark? And you think just because you have a lot of ammunition, you think you're gonna eventually hit that mark? No, you're not. No, 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 no. I'm not suggesting that you know, you hand over any authority to any other person. What I'm suggesting is that you yield to reality. You yield to reality and accept your limitations. You honestly think that you can do it all. Work 10 hours a day. You only have 24 of those hours, 6 days a week, and only so much energy that you can put into a day. That's why they give you 8 hours, because they know after 8 hours you're not getting nothing. For the good ones, with a structure and a discipline and a rhythm and a routine, you can get 10 good hours out of them. But that last hour is really not a productive hour. Like that last hour on the last day of the week, man, you're just a body filling in a place, a necessary body filling in a necessary place. And hopefully there's not a lot going on. But you think you can pull this off. You think you can work out 6 days a week, work 10 hours 6 days a week, you know, and then come home and make an hour's worth of content, more than an hour's worth of videos every day, and then maintain friendships and extended relationships and have a full nurtured relationship. Don't forget, you have to nurture that relationship. You have to nurture that relationship. Otherwise, she's going to go get somebody else to nurture it. You know, you got to nurture that counterpart. And then of course, you have to be a mentor and a support structure for those 3 or 4 kids, two of which are somebody else's, while starting a business on the side to earn extra money. I mean, you really think you can pull all this off in 24 hours? This is why, like, married people always look so old. You ever seen like people in relationships? They put out these pictures to say, "Oh, look at my glow up," but it's not really a glow up. It's just you in a costume. The fact that the marriage has broken you down, man. It has withered you down, and so you're trying to recover from a deficit. It's not like, even if like a bachelor puts on weight or that kind of thing, you're really recovering from like a bachelor position. You're not recovering from a knee bender. So you're not starting from your knees. You're starting already on your feet, and all you gotta do is get those steps in. Knee benders, they have to crawl on their knees and elbows first and then try and build up the courage to stand on their feet. You're not gonna pull this off. You believe you can do all these things and still have what they call work life balance, to go on vacations, to travel for pleasure, to travel also for enlightenment and personal growth, far away places, but also to be able to explore your own near surroundings a little bit deeper, daily, a little bit more every week, a little bit more every month, a little bit more every year. As your life unfolds, so does the hands of time, and so does the passage and maturity of Mother Earth. Nonsense. I'm here to tell you that you are not going to achieve any of this. You cannot. You don't have the capacity. You don't have the time. You can't do any of these things. You think you can do some of them or most of them. I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to do any of them. Not one. Like, you can get one of these things right. You can get to work and make yourself some money and save what you make. Right? Now, I'm not going to tell you, well, you'll go to work and make millions and millions. Okay, maybe you make millions. Maybe you make billions. I'm just telling you that what you make, you need to save. Grow your savings, man. Grow your savings. That you can do for sure. You can focus all your energy, all your attention on growing your bank account, your savings, and the amount of time that you work, the hours that you put in. But after that, you'll be too tired. And then doing all these things, raising kids, having a family, nurturing a relationship, starting a side business, putting out your philosophy of videos on the internet, it's going to weigh you down, man. It's going to weigh you down. You'll be too tired. That's why you see like content creators, they'll go like 3-4 days without making a video. And then they'll just put one out, 2, 3, 4 videos, quickly 10-minute videos, 15-minute videos, and so on, because they're just too tired. It requires too much time. And it requires too much effort. Like, planning a vacation is going to require too much effort. What you're effectively asking for is to get both parents off at exactly the same time, regardless of what's happening at their work, while the kids are also free from school. So usually the parents are working all day while the kids are at home, but now you want both parents and kids. So what you want effectively is you want school holidays. You want school holidays. Every few weeks, every few months, you get, like a month off for vacation. And then every few weeks, every few months, you want a month off for vacation. Now, I understand this system. I have a 90-day system myself, which is built on me getting vacations. But my vacations are not tied to children. Right? They're not tied to children. So how are you gonna plan all that and organize all that? And then once you've organized it, you're gonna find out that you can't really afford it. Taking 3 kids, 4 kids on a vacation and a step kid? No way. No one has been able to do all of these. To both raise money and raise kids, and then work and run a business and nurture all these different relationships. Just look at the divorce rates. Look at the rising child support statistics. Look at the lawyer fees. Lawyers are making a killing. Look at how many people have lost their assets on both sides. The kids lose, the parents lose, The only people that kind of sort of win are the lawyers, but they only win in as so far as you can pay them. Otherwise, they're doing some labor for free. Like, you got to understand, as much as you pay lawyers, they get to a point where it's like their case has gone, so far, and maybe you hit a rough patch. So they'll keep your case on hold and find out things, and represent you, in as far as you can, filing motions and that kind of thing. But ultimately, they also understand that you hit a rough patch financially. and they have to wait for you to get over that rough patch before you can start paying them again. Like, do not meet people. There are people who owe lawyers money, like money, you know, and they just can't pay it. They just don't have it. And all these are the honest marriages, right? These are the ones that are telling us the truth, the ones that fail, the ones that suffer with the divorce, the child support, the alimony, the lawyer fees, and so forth. Think of all the ones, the billions upon billions of people that move together, and live together and stay together and never break up because they simply can't leave for whatever the reason. Maybe they got financial ties, they're staying for the kids, they don't want to embarrass the family, social pressure, whatever the reasons are. You know what I mean? If you leave, you're gonna be destitute or homeless, or you're just gonna have to find another man, or you're just gonna have to find another woman, and you don't know what that person is gonna be like. Maybe this person isn't, your cup of tea, but they're not so bad, right? But you stay anyway. You're not happy until that happiness boils over. Until that sadness, that unhappiness boils over. First, you start with a little bit of unhappiness, then it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows until the other person notices it, and then they realize that they can't fix it. Then they realize that all the effort that they put into trying to make you happy has just, made them resent you. You're a miserable person, and now they not only do they not like you, they resent you. And you are either going to be in the dark dimension forever, and you'll be trapped into it. Not only that, you'll pull other people into it too. And you have to ask yourself, at what point do you stop and realize that none of this is working? Just the whole mechanism and all its devices are failing. Dating is a botched, it's a bad invention. The process of inventing something is quite something. It's quite a challenge. When somebody invents something, they go through tremendous failures before they get it right. Some people never actually get their invention right, and then they sell you the botch, like the bad idea. And that's what dating is. Dating was a bad idea, and someone was able to sell it and make money out of it. And there are other people who've been trying to say, no, get married first, do this first, try and do that first, right? But based on how things, it's like, also there's the idea like, there's those people who get their inventions right, and then somebody steals it from them. Now, it's better to steal something in terms of inventions and idea than to try and come up with your own, because you're going to fail so badly. Like, people who invent things, they fail for decades. They fail for decades before they get it right. And people who steal inventions, they get it in an instant. And the person who invented dating, marriages, and then divorce, honestly, they must have done it for financial reasons, because this was a terrible invention. It was a botch. And what they were able to do is they were able to sell a bad product that wastes money to people, quite frankly, who were desperate to not be in the situation that they were in. There were people who thought they were undesirable and by this particular person, and instead of improving themselves, all they did was go to somebody else who themselves was, desirable, less desirable, more desperate, whatever the situation was, right? But, other than those reasons, it's like people want to be in the company of others, and so somebody has to pay for these kids and these counterparts, and it might as well be these knee benders. They might as well date men. But otherwise, I have to ask myself, what is the point? of continuing to fight? What is the point at this point? Knowing that you are inevitably going to lose. It's predictable. And everybody knows it. And everybody knows it. And yet you still believe that it won't happen to you. And of course it will. It happens to everyone. Even with all that you know, all of the laws, all of the costs, all of the outcomes, all of the experience, all of the articles, all of the videos, and yet you still persist. And I'm not sure what you are hoping to get, because winning is out of the question. Winning in this game is the same thing as losing. Even if you get a successful relationship at first, eventually you're going to get cheated on. You are going to get cheated on. I read the statistics the other day that said that people only use condoms 20% of the time. And that 20% is when they are cheating. Which doesn't mean that only 20% of people use condoms. No. That's a misunderstanding. That's to imply that only 20% of people cheat. No. Everybody cheats. And they cheat a minimum of 20% all the time. Those statistics are misrepresented by people who want to mislead you. To say, well, it's not all of us that cheat, it's only that 20%. The rest of us are constantly loyal all the time, and that's not true. Everybody cheats, and they cheat at a 20% rate on the minimum. On the minimum. If you don't believe me, go read those statistics again. Go and read those statistics again and look at really what they say. Are they saying that only 20% of humanity cheats? Right? So it's only this tribe and people in that tribe, they don't cheat? It's only that faith and people in that faith that don't cheat? Man, everybody cheats. Everybody cheats. Anyone who can cheat will cheat. You're going to be betrayed and disrespected and emasculated and belittled, and then you're going to be mocked for any of your responses and no responses at all. And who are the people that are going to be mocking you? The first one is going to be me, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains and the master of the deceptive arts. I'm the one who's just spent the entire video telling you you're making a mistake. You need to let go. You need to surrender to reality. But this isn't just, to warn you. To warn you. When you have these things, alimony, divorce, child support, lawyer fees, alimony, divorce, child support, lawyer fees, when all these things happen to you, I'm not going to feel sorry for you. I'm really not going to feel sorry for you because it's predictable. Everyone knows it's going to happen. You're going to spend all of your time trying to budget money to get this person what they want, and then they're going to call you financially abusive. And she's going to do it in a mansion with 3 cars outside, spending all day doing Pilates. And then she's going to come and say she wants to go on a 24-day cruise. And you're going to explain to her that you're not going to be able to take a month off of work to party with her. Not only can you not afford, just imagine drinks every day for a month. Not only can you not afford that, you just can't take the downtime. She's going to call you financially abusive. She's going to call you financially abusive because you don't want to squander any more of your money. That's what financial abuse means, by the way. It means you don't want to squander any more of your money. You want to save some money while she wants to go broke and then go into debt. And then do you know what she's going to say? She's going to say, it's just money. Memories are more important than money. Imagine the madness. The madness. And then you're going to be sued. You know what alimony is? Alimony is when you when you tell her you don't want to go on a cruise and you don't want to waste this money, then she divorces you anyway because you didn't want to go on the cruise, because you wanted to save money. Then she's going to come back, and the alimony is the money. You pay her the money to keep her alive. The money that you didn't spend on the cruise is the money that she's going to need to stay alive anyway. You see the irony here? So on the one hand, you tell her we need this money so we can stay alive. Then she divorces you because you don't want to spend the money that she needs to stay alive, because you're trying to keep the money to keep her alive. Then she goes and says that you're financially abusive. Then immediately after claiming you're financially abusive, on the same day, I don't mean like a different minute, like on the one hand, she'll have two documents in her hand simultaneously. One, claiming that you're financially abusive, and then on the other hand, she's going to be simultaneously filing a motion for you to pay alimony, which means that she wants you to keep managing her finances the way that you've been doing so you can keep her alive. But she's divorcing you for managing your finances the way that you've been doing in order to keep her alive. Fantastic. What a waste of my time. What a waste of my time. And I'm going to be mocking you. I'm going to point this out to you as often as I can. Just the irony. The thing that you are doing to not destroy your life is the thing she's going to use to destroy your marriage, and then come back and say, use the thing that you were doing to not keep us from being destroyed, to keep us from not being destroyed. Fantastic. This is the person that you married, by the way. And at the same time, she's going to be mocking you. So she's going to mock you for not taking her to that stupid cruise. She's going to mock you for divorce. She's going to mock you for financial abuse. And then she's going to mock you for paying her money for keeping her alive. And then when you don't pay, she's going to mock you more. And it's like, so on the one hand, I pay and you insult me. And then I don't pay and you still insult me. So it doesn't really make a difference what I do. I'm just here to be insulted and ridiculed. Yes. You are there for one purpose only: to be insulted, ridiculed, and then to have finances extracted from you, while you receive no pleasure from this. Right? Like your condition is not part of the consideration. And you allowed this. You allowed this. You allowed this, and the counterpart is going to be mocking you. Those kids who you pay so much in child support for, the counterpart's going to take that money, squander it. She's going to blow that money. Just think about it. The first thing she's going to do is take that money and go on a cruise, come back, and then just be destroyed. Right? Until she finds another man to make her life better. And she will. Right? The old way. But then those kids are going to mock you and insult you and say that you didn't raise them properly. Not only that, the knee benders who convinced you that you to start dating, who convinced you that dating was smart, who told you that marriage was profitable, who told you that having kids was wise and it was the fulfilling of prophecy, or they're going to mock you when you're in the child support court. They're going to tell you you're a deadbeat. Remember, these people are going to call you a deadbeat. The same people who told you that getting married was a good idea. They're going to say, no, it's not the institution that failed. The institution makes sense. It's you that's the failure. And then you look at the statistics, and the institution is failing everyone. But they're going to say, no. You look at their marriages. Look at their marriages. Look at their counterpart and say, is this what you really want? Is this what you really want? Or is what you want something that you saw from a movie? All this in hope for some type of success. Some type of, what do they call this thing? A helpmate. And you didn't get that. Instead, it's led you from one calamity and one catastrophe to another. Mentally, physically, financially destroyed. And you are lucky to still have your freedom in your life after everything that you've been through and keep putting yourself into. There is nothing more to fight for in these romance war, in this dating. You know exactly where it's going because it's going to the same place where it's going, where it goes for everyone. You know exactly where it's going for you because it's going to the same place where it's going for everyone, right? And reality has exposed you. Reality has exposed you. You said these marriages were this and that and great, and these marriages are miserable. People are living in separate parts of the houses, sleeping in separate bedrooms, wives with boyfriends, husbands with girlfriends. Man, it's a mess. Reality is exposing you. Dating is a loss, marriage is a loss, kids are a major loss, and then divorce, well, that's the ultimate loss. That's where you lose it all. I suggest you surrender, not as a tool for strength or tactical decisions, or even as a vasectomy to go freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy, blah, blah, blah. I say that every day and I'm going to say it again. By the way, go freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting you do what Robert Greene suggests in today's edification, in today's reading. But I suggest you surrender as an acceptance to reality, as looking at the situation for what it is and saying, you know what, I lose. No matter what I do, I'm going to lose. So what's the point? Surrender, man. Let it go. Let it go. So here is the actual reading for today. It comes straight from the book itself. I'm actually going to read the whole chapter. I have my opinions on the book, The 48 Laws of Power. I have mixed reviews. I have my philosophy, The Art of War, and a lot of people will compare Sun Tzu's work with Robert Greene. In terms of the level of strategic relevance. It's a very good book. It's a very powerful book. But after putting it into practice, it is I have mixed outcomes with this book. When I put the art of war into practice, I have consistent outcomes. It's always the same outcome. You know, Sun Tzu says, put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat before picking the war. But sometimes the war comes to you in a time when you are not prepared, right? Sun Tzu says, don't sit around hoping that the enemy will not come. Rather, stand prepared for when he does come. And then what happens when he does come and he's got 10 times as much of everything that you have, right? Then you can play certain games, but eventually, big fish eat little fish. So what do you do then? Robert Greene suggests that you surrender. I don't know so much about that in terms of conflict. I think that if you surrender to an enemy that has decided to keep you down and to weaken you, they'll control your every move and destroy you. Right? That's if you survive long enough for them to control your every move. But if you are somehow able to pull this off, it might work under very slim circumstances. But I wouldn't rely on the mercy of my enemies, not for a single moment. Simultaneously, there is the situation where you have to face reality. You fight, you're doomed. You surrender, maybe you have a chance. Who knows? It is Law 22 that we're reading. It's use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power. I shouldn't have a colon, and a colon, but yeah, I should have just put a comma there somewhere. I'm not going to blame the author. I think this was my mistake. You shouldn't use two colons in a sentence at all. Anyway, oh, I know what happened. I know what happened. No. You see, I'm gonna justify myself here. This heading was actually two lines. So the one was use the surrender tactic, and then the second line was transform weakness into power, the 48 laws of power. And I'm realizing that now. It all happened during the editing. But if you put it down one line from transform weakness into power and you put that down, it actually makes grammatical sense. The original book was published by Robert Greene in 1998, but today's edification comes from Alexander Emmanuel Landalis on his website. I was too late to forage through the book. I was too lazy, way too lazy. But it's the same information, you know. It's the same information. I don't have a copy of the book. By the way, this is why I don't have the information, and I'm not getting one. I'm not following this guy's philosophy. I'm strict with the art of war. And the reason is that I just don't want to have conflicting philosophies in my head, right? I'm a practitioner of the deceptive arts. I'll take an advantage where I see it, but I'm not deviating from my course. I've made that mistake before. Well, almost. The website is alexanderemmanuel.com. And there's the link to the actual chapter of the book. I believe it's the full chapter of the book, and we are going to read it here today. Now, judgment, it says, whenever you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake. I agree. Choose surrender instead. Perhaps just evade. Try evading before surrender. Surrender gives you time to recover, or, well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. If you surrender, let's assume it's wartime, you surrender and they massacre you anyway. No time for recovering there. Time to torment or irritate your conqueror. This is how people get eliminated. I was going to say another more meaningful word, but you know what I mean. This is how people get eliminated. So, on the one hand, your enemy spares your life, and then you torment and irritate your conqueror. You're not going to pull this off. Time to wait for his power to wane. Oh, now you're going to wait for that power person to lose power. Do not give him the satisfaction of the fighting and defeating you. Surrender first. By turning the other cheek, you infuriate and unsettle him. Make surrender a tool of power. You are begging for trouble if you do this. I see now why I'm not following this philosophy. Man, if you depend on the mercy of other people and then think you are going to annoy them so that their power wanes, this is not how to do it. Yes, Sun Tzu says, if your enemy is of choleric temper, irritate them. But this doesn't mean let them defeat you first and then irritate them. No. This is to unsettle them from a position of advantage, to weaken them so that they don't collect their armies and forces and come after you. You should have done this irritation tactic before they conquered you, not after. You're gonna, man, they already massacred your army and took the remaining soldiers into their ranks, stole all your technology, conquered all your laws, and they've got their own people marching and marshalling the streets. And what are you going to do? Annoy them? A person who controls the law, the army, the money, the power, and you're going to annoy them? I don't know so much about that. And then hope that their power will wane? And then you turn so they slap you, and then you turn the other cheek so you can get slapped again. I don't know so much about that, man. Why don't you just try avoid not getting slapped? Let's try that. The concept of this law may prove challenging for many. I'm one of those type A personalities, that's me, who identify happily with masculine energy. I just want to be logical, strategic, and effective. If that's masculine energy, I'm cool with that. Otherwise, I'm not taking a risk on my enemies. No way. Let me put it to you like this. If you were my enemy, and I conquered you and then spared your life, and then you annoyed me afterwards, I'm not going to spare you twice. Really, I'm not sparing you twice. Because I learned my lesson. The first time I spared you, you just couldn't move on. You had to come back and play games. Okay, so now I see you like playing games. No more games for you. Um, Especially because surrender is typically associated as a sign of weakness, so it's often hard to see how surrendering can be used as an intelligent tactic. The following story exemplifies how one can fall due to honor and pride getting in the way of a tactful surrender. Okay, look. If you realize that you are not stronger than an enemy of yours, you need to devise a plan before they start attacking you. You cannot, this is what Sun Tzu says. He says, he will win who first puts himself beyond the possibility of defeat and then fight, whereas he who is destined to lose first fights and then seeks victory. At this point, the enemy is already there fighting you. They're bigger than you, they're stronger than you. You didn't anticipate them, you have already lost. Surrender was inevitable. What you're doing is you're begging for your life. Transgression of the law, he says, in classic times, the city of Athens dominated the sea and coastal areas around Greece. The island of Melos was situated in the heart of the Mediterranean, which the Athenians wanted to conquer. The Meleneans refused to ally themselves with the Athenians and remained loyal to their original colonizer, Sparta. In 416 BC, the Athenians set an expedition against Melos before launching an all-out attack. However, they dispatched a delegation to persuade. There you go. To persuade. My mind went to peruse. To persuade the millions to surrender and become an ally rather than suffer defeat. So effectively, what they're saying in the previous slide is that the Athenians had the power and the money, but they didn't want to go and fight and destroy someone who they thought would become an ally. So they went out to negotiate with them, to see if they could win them over to their side before going to war or before deciding if war was the thing to do. It continues here on the second slide. The Melians, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, argued how authority belonged to the gods, oh boy, not to the mortals, oh here we go, and exclaimed their assurances that Sparta would come to their defenses. The Athenians insisted Sparta would not come to their defense. The Athenians countered that the Spartans were a conservative, practical people and would not help Melos because they had nothing to gain and a lot to lose by doing so. This makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me. That's what I'm talking about in these relationships too. Why continue? Why continue? It's a practical thing. You had nothing to gain. You got really very little to gain from these relationships. Very, very little to gain, and a lot to lose. Finally, the millions began to talk of honor and principle and of resisting brute force. Of course, they do. Do not be led astray by a false sense of honor, said the Athenians. Honor often brings men to ruin when they are faced with an obvious danger that somehow affects their pride. That is a very interesting take. When you are looking at someone who has their weapons and their armies waiting outside your gate, and of course, they sue for peace. They want to become allies, and they're telling you that you can't trust your friends, which of course you cannot. But then they say, you know, a false honor. They say be strategic, right? So the trick of I think the problem that I see in this situation is that on the one hand, Sparta, while they may not come and help you, they don't necessarily see you as an enemy. Whereas the Athenians, although they may be claiming to try and help, they've already declared themselves as an enemy. So now your enemy is trying to tell you to betray your friends. And if you betray your friends, now you've made an enemy of Sparta. And the real question is now that you've made an enemy of Sparta, should Sparta attack the greatest military force at the time, are the Athenians going to come to your defense? And the answer is no, absolutely not. So now you're in a catch 22, you know? I would have probably just agreed anyway. I would have just used the deceptive words. I would have been like, yeah, fine, we're in it. And then when the Spartans come, I would have told the Spartans, listen, man, we had no choice. We had to side with them at the time, but we're on your side, you know. And then they come and then I'd explain to Sparta, man, we got to do business with these people. You know what I'm saying? What are we gonna do? You know, we're on your side, but you know, it was either that or elimination. You know, if they're offering it and we got no choice, you're gonna take it. I mean, the problem is that by the time they're done destroying you, even if Sparta puts on all their military force and comes on over, by the time they arrive, weeks, months, years later, how much damage would have been done? Might as well surrender in this case. You know, this is really about facing reality, right? This is what this is all about. It's about you facing reality and understanding, what do you have to gain and what do you have to lose. And this counterpart of yours, you think they're going to come to your defense until you see them in the court and you realize, man, this person was never on my side. This person has been complaining. They'll hate you for things that happened like 13 years ago. You're in your 20s, you say something that a 20-year-old will say, and they'll hold you accountable for it in your 40s. And it's like, so you've been hating me our entire relationship? And it's like, yeah. Then why stay a decade? Why stay 15 years, 20 years with this person that you hate? And it doesn't make any sense, man. Waiting, one day I'm going to destroy them. One day I'm going to destroy them. 20 years, 15 years, 10 years of marriage. Just waiting. And then divorce. Oh, really? That's the grand plan? It's a predictable plan. And anybody who falls for that plan, man, that's your own choice. That's your own choice, I like this quote here. Honor often brings men to ruin when they are faced with an obvious danger that somehow affects their pride. Is this an issue of pride? Is dating an issue of pride? You want to date because you think you're going to win, right? For context, think about how the deaths occurring in popular TV show Game of Thrones link to this idea. I'm not getting into Game of Thrones. The debate ended. The millions discussed the issue among themselves and decided to trust in the aid of the Spartans, the will of the gods, and the righteousness of their cause. Oh, catastrophe. I can already see the catastrophe, right? Instead of putting your faith in yourself, you're putting your faith in somebody else. You're putting your faith in the gods, as they say. You're putting your faith in righteousness, and you're putting your faith in a cause. And all these things are just going to collapse in front of you when you should be putting your faith in yourself. Don't put your faith in anything other than yourself. Until that thing is proven to be true, then you trust it until it's not worth trusting anymore, which won't take very long. They politely declined the Athenians' offer. Of course, a few days later, the Athenians invaded Melos. The Melians fought nobly, even without the Spartans, who did not come to their rescue, obviously. right? I mean, even if they wanted to, how long was that gonna rescue? How long was that rescue gonna take? The Athenians put to death all the men of military age that they could capture. They sold the women and children as slaves, and they repopulated the island with their own colonists. Only a handful of millions survived. Now, what is to guarantee that this wouldn't have been the outcome anyway? Like, there's no indication here to me that would indicate that anything different would have happened other than this calamity. You could have said, fine, we'll side with you, and they would have massacred you anyway. The fact that they had the capacity to do it there, right? And you have minimal ability to what happens if you have minimal capacity to like prevent this outcome, right? I mean, look what happened, right? The Athenians put to death all the men of military age. Now, what's to say that they weren't going to do that anyway? The only difference is that your arms, your weapons would have been down when they did it. At least this way, you took a few of the Athenians. He talks as if no Athenians died. They did that after a long, tragic war, which could have gone anywhere. I mean, the Athenians could have ran out of resources. These people could have put on a valiant defense. They could have been prepared. They really, if you're on an island during a time when everyone is sailing, man, you could have been prepared, right? They sold the women and children as slaves. What is to say that they weren't going to do that anyway? You know, and repopulated the island with their own colonists. That was absolutely going to happen. If the other two weren't going to happen, the first one was going to happen. They were going to make their own laws, put in their own people, and do whatever the hell they wanted. The only difference is that now you wouldn't have put up a resistance. But, maybe you delayed them for a few weeks, a few months, a few years. But I don't see how surrendering prevents this. I think it just speeds it up. Then he says interpretations. The millions let their honor, pride, and principle blind them to the rationality and tact behind surrendering. I guess I'm one of those. I don't have the belief that somebody would put up an army, load their weapons, load their provisions, sail across the oceans, get to my island, and then say, hey, we want peace. Then why did you bring the whole army? You brought an army to talk about peace? Man, you could have brought a small delegation with a few gifts and a little bit of money, and then we could have talked about it. But you brought a whole army. You brought a whole army. Now there's an army outside my door, and there you are talking about, yeah, where are all your friends now? Man, I don't know. I don't know about all that. You should have left the army at home. A clear example of how surrendering can be extremely useful. I he hasn't proven this for me. He hasn't proven this for me. The ability to protect ourselves, Sun Tzu says, lies in our own hands. The opportunity to defeat the enemy will be provided by the enemy himself. You have to put yourself beyond the possibility to defeat before even the enemy arrives. And you cannot sit there waiting and hoping that the enemy will come. What you can do is prepare yourself and be certain that you are ready to receive him when he does come. This is the art of war. Surrendering and then hoping that your enemy will be merciful after you put down your weapons, after your army surrenders, and then now they've got to feed all these people. No, 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 no. I don't see it. I just don't see it. This was my problem with this manuscript, is that while it was very entertaining and the ideas sounded good, all you've done is you've given your enemies an opportunity to destroy you and to do it with no resistance. and you are hoping that they'll be merciful and kind. Why don't you just stand on the side of the road and beg? Really, really. I'm one of the people who cannot see how this is useful. This is how and why Sparta protected themselves. Had the Melians surrendered in the first place, they would have been able to sabotage the Athenians in subtle ways. What does that even mean? Or might have gotten what they could have out of the alliance and then left it when the Athenians themselves were weakened, which could have taken generations. There are countries that have waited almost 400 years for the United States to be weakened. And every year, America is just stronger and richer and more powerful, more advanced, more technological. Like, man, it's just getting worse and worse. Like, the gap is widening so quickly between first world countries and others. And I mean, people are scrambling to keep up, but you just don't have the mechanism. Now, you're going to wait 400 years while you annoy your enemy. Give me a break. You're going to sabotage them in subtle ways. You use your subtle ways look. Sun Tzu says, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in preventing the enemy from attacking you to begin with. How is surrendering and begging for mercy a tactic? Even the fighting is a terrible tactic, right? There are 1,000 ways that they could have ended this. But as for surrendering, I don't know. I don't know all about this. But there are some people who believe in this philosophy, man. There are some people who don't believe in the deceptive arts. And they think that somehow they're gonna play this game by this philosopher and come out on top. I'm telling you, if you surrender, if you have people that are your enemies right now that are sabotaging you, if you surrender to them, they will be merciless, merciless. And if I'm one of them, oh no, no, no. You're gonna wait for me to be weakened when all I'm doing is working day after day after day to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I'm working to get stronger from a position of tremendous advantage. Having already had savings, having already brought my army, my provisions, my tactics, my generals, my weaponry, and all my ammunitions pointed at you. And now you're gonna wait to annoy me until I'm weakened. Give me a break, you know? And apparently, this is the fact that happened several years later. Years. Years. They surrendered, and the Athenians were pillaging their country for years, taking resources, writing laws, printing money, just doing whatever they wanted. It took years. And and now you have to consider that had you not fought, they would have a fully fledged army with all their ammunition and all their resources. All you did was lay down their weapons and they would have every advantage. It probably took years because they were so already weakened from the initial defense. They lost so many soldiers, lost so much ammunition, spent so much money on this endeavor, and then came in and then tried to get as much out of it as they can. That's what happened here, right? They killed all the military men so they don't have any more resistance. Then they sold everything they could to try and make up for that financial military personnel loss. And then they tried to secure a place that quite frankly was already destroyed by the army. That didn't sound like a tremendous victory for the Athenians, not that the way that he describes it. He brushes over a lot of details here, you know. And I don't know, man. Then he says years later. No, 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 no. What happened in those years in between when you were trying to be annoying? How many people do you think got executed for being annoying over and above everyone else that was lost in the army? This doesn't sound proper to me. As a practitioner of the deceptive arts and a follower of Sun Tzu, I have nothing but questions for this philosophy and the outcomes that come with it. The final slide, he says, key to powers. The more volatile one's character, the more they tend to meet fire with fire, aggression with aggression. At least there I agree, right? You need to have a calm, cool temperament, one that is not easily insulted, right? Or provoked by insults, right? Doing the opposite of what you're conditioned to may prove extremely useful. Depends on what you're conditioned to do. If you find yourself temporarily weakened, the surrender tactic is perfect for raising yourself up again. This is a bender's advice. This is a bender's advice. First, you bend the knee, then you try and raise yourself up again. You're already in a weakened position. You see, you haven't worked on strengthening yourself. You didn't go freeze your sperm, you didn't get a vasectomy. Now somebody's pregnant, and you're going to now try and say, well, I'll surrender temporarily and get my strength up. 18 years. 18 years and lifetime alimony. 18 years, child support, and lifetime alimony are the consequences of your failure. What is this? I cannot understand. You're going to bend the knee, then you're going to raise yourself up again. You're going to surrender, then you're going to bend. Like, I'm saying to you, reality is telling you not to get into a conflict where you are going to lose. I'm telling you that not playing the game is the winning move. But when the army is already there, when the baby is already there, it means you were not able to prevent the attack from happening. The fact that the Athenian army was already there is an indication that the Melians were not aware of their threat and they didn't take that threat seriously. And then that threat came, they fought, which I thought was probably the best thing they could do under the circumstances, right? Because the outcome that they got is the outcome that they were always going to get. And the same is true for you here. The outcome that you are going to get is the outcome that you are going to get in this romance war. You go dating, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to have kids, you're going to have child support. You get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to get divorced, you're going to get alimony. You already know the song and dance. I don't have to repeat it again and again in this video, even though I just did. All right? But if you are in a weakened position and then you surrender, right, you're not getting up. You're not getting up. I'm telling you, you are not getting up. They're going to keep you down. That's like saying, oh, I have one kid and then I'll recover. You have one kid, you're going to get a second one. You're not getting up from that. 18 years of child support, and even then you still got to pay for college afterwards, and you may very well get a lifetime alimony. This is not a good tactic. The best tactic is to prevent all of this from happening to begin with. Not to try and stop it when it's already, you know what I mean? The best tactic is to prevent that reality from happening to you. Not to try and change the reality when you're already in it. That's too late, man. He says it disguises your ambition. It teaches you patience and self-control, the key skills in this game, and puts you in the best possible position for taking advantage of your opponent's sudden slide. Absolutely not. You surrendered. You have no weapons, no ammunition, no power, and no money. And you're going to wait for somebody who's got money, power, weapons, ammunition, who's working on growing those things to slip up, and then you're going to use that sudden slide to take them to overtake them? No way. No way. No, I don't foresee it. But let's continue. For every famous martyr, there are thousands more who have inspired neither religion nor a rebellion. So that if martyrdom does sometimes grant a certain power, it does so unpredictably. When power deserts you, it is best to ignore the law's reversal. Leave martyrdom alone. The pendulum will swing back your way eventually, and you should stay alive to see it. This is assuming that you have the option. He is assuming that your enemy will give you the option. I've never seen somebody go to child support and say, you know what, let's give him the option of improving himself. No way, man. They try to get as much out of you as they can, and they don't care how they do it. Right? They really don't care how they do it. I don't know about all this. I don't know about surrendering to other people, but I do know that facing reality and dealing with it is something that people have to do. Otherwise, the consequences, they're very real. The consequences of this are going to be very real. And you're going to face them alone. And then I'm going to be making videos about it and getting some clout. Don't think I won't do that. Don't think I won't go out of my way to benefit from your predictable misery, especially since I told you, you know, to stay away from it. But, for those people that are interested in this philosophy, you're more than going after it and more than welcome to go after it. But this was my problem with this philosophy. I found a lot of contradiction now that I remember it. I found a lot of contradiction in his philosophy. I found on the one hand, he's telling you to go get victory, on the other hand, he's telling you to surrender a weak hand when you shouldn't have had the weak hand to begin with. Yes, sometimes you have the weak hand, but Sun Tzu says do not climb heights in order to fight battles. You should be like water, and water flows downwards, not up. All right? If your enemies are already there waiting to fight, that means you have no power. If the lawyer's already waiting there for that alimony, child support, if the counterpart is already waiting there with the threat of divorce, it means that you have no power. You shouldn't have put yourself in that position. What you need to do is to look at the reality the way it is. Don't surrender to those people because they'll destroy you, just like the Athenians did to the Malians. In the end, even if you surrender and play this tactic, there's no stopping them from destroying you still. Face the reality, deal with it accordingly, and ultimately, when you do the calculations, I'm sure you'll come to the same outcome that I did, where you decide to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. And then you decide to, protect yourself, protect your seed, and then you protect your solitude. But it's time for us to face reality and to accept this mechanism, this dating thing, man, it's failed. It's failed. And I'm speaking to you as a single, productive guy right now. The last thing I need in my life is somebody arguing with me over a towel. I mean, there are moments in these videos where I pause for too long. And sometimes I'll listen to the videos back, and I'll realize how dead quiet it is when I pause. Even now when I speak, it's only the voice of the vasectomites you hear. No pitter-patter of happy feet in this life, because I accepted that reality. And I surrendered to it. And I realized I don't have what it takes to be a father. And you need to accept this too. If you know within yourself you don't know what it takes to be a father or a husband, accept it. Surrender to reality and live your life in peace. There is really one circumstance where surrendering makes sense. And that is surrendering to reality. Surrendering to a human being, you're going to get yourself massacred. You're really going to get yourself massacred. But this is the end of the video. And once again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention and let you know that I really appreciate it. Also, I'd like you to please like the video if you've enjoyed the content. Please share it with your friends or anybody who you think needs to accept reality and face the facts and stop being so delusional. Let them watch this video and let them know they're not going to get no sympathy from me. And also, please leave a comment to remain as part of the conversation, and I promise you I will respond to as many of them and as quickly as I possibly can. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, and let me say once again, protect yourself, protect your seed, and protect your solitude, and I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful day.